Good morning. Learning Tractate Shabbos, chapter 17. The name of the chapter is called Hakelim. Just check with the last thing we discussed yesterday. So if one threw the cover in a trash heap while it was yet day, before the Shabbos on Friday, it's prohibited for use on Shabbos. Why? Because the person indicated that before Shabbos that the cover will no longer be used as a utensil. So we'll start from Amar Rav Hamduri. Amar Bar Hamduri Amar Shmuel Krumio Shemachzeres Mutar Tatem B'Shabbos. Shreds of reeds that became detached from a mat, almost like a carpet mat that became detached, may be moved on the Shabbos. These shreds, these little pieces of wood, my timer. Bar Hamduri asked early, what is the reason that they are not muktzeh? Rava said, Bar Hamduri explained it to me as follows. Machzeles gufa l'may chazi. What is the use of machzeles for this mat? L'chasuye be'afro. Cover dust with it. The dust is on the floor. You're putting the mat on the floor, on the dust. Havenami chazi chasuye b'tinafis. So the same thing, the shreds of it, small pieces of it that broke off, can also be used as suitable to cover dirt with them. So therefore, you're allowed to metatel them, you're allowed to move them on Shabbos because they're still utensils, they're still serving their purpose. Remnants of a talis may not be moved on the Shabbos. Abaye said, Rabbi Zera is dealing with patches that are less than 3 finger breadth by 3 finger breadth. These are muktzah. They are muktzah because they are unsuitable for use of either paupers or people of means. Shards of an old oven are like all other utensils that may be taken in a courtyard. Div Rab Meir, these are the words of Rab Meir. Rabbi Yehuda any tolim, they may not be taken. Rabbi Yossi Mishum Abu Lezer ben Yaakov, Rabbi Yossi testified in the name of Lezer ben Yaakov al Shivrei Sanur Yoshem concerning the shards of an old oven. Shenitolim b'Shabbos, that they may be taken on the Shabbos. Al Kisuyon concerning the cover of an oven, she'eino tzorich beis yad, one without a handle, it does not need a handle in order for one to be allowed to take it on the Shabbos. So all these shivrei tanur yashon, shards of an old oven, may be taken on Shabbos, and the cover of an oven can be taken. Why? Because it's still a utensil. As long as it's remaining a kli. So what is the disagreement? They disagree concerning a case where the shards can be used to perform some sort of task, but not to perform a semblance of the former task. So, performing some sort of task with nothing to do with the previous one. Va'az Rabbi Yehuda Tamei, and Rabbi Yehuda follows his own reasoning, as set forth in our Mishnah, that such shards are noilud and may not be moved. Rabbi Meir Tamei, Rabbi Meir follows his own reasoning, that such shards are considered prepared for use and may be moved. So Abai's explanation is rejected. Matkifla Rava objected to this. Iachi, if so, the miflege b'shiri sanu, instead of arguing specifically about shards of an old oven, liflegu b'shiri chelim b'alma, they should have argued about shards of any broken utensils. Ela amarava b'shivra da'itanu kamiflege, regarding the shards, it is regarding the shards of the following oven that they disagreed. At nan, for we learned in a Mishnah Nesan al pi abur or al pi adus, if one placed an oven over the mouth of a pit, over the mouth of a cistern, venosan sham evan, and he placed a stone there to wedge the oven in. Abu Daimer says, if one can heat the oven by lighting a fire underneath it on the floor of the pit or cistern, and it will be heated effectively above, Tameh, it is Tameh. Vim lav, Torah, but if not, it is Torah. But the sage says, Oil v'usak, we call mokim Tameh. Since the oven was heated by any means, it is Tameh. Very interesting pictures of oven styles. One is the hole is wide, and the pot is smaller than the hole. So the only thing that allows it to remain is the stone. Right. The stone keeps it there. Right. Second one is bottom and top are the same height. It's just that the pot itself is wide on top. That's what keeps it from not falling down. And the second one, the pot is the same, is round. It's just that the hole itself has a little stone there, and also the shape of it is like wide in the bottom and narrow in the top.
The last one's the same. It's a cylinder. Are you talking about the third one?
Yeah.
It's a cylinder, and the hole is already have a little stone there.
Yeah, it has a little stone, but if you look at the shape of the pit,
yeah,
the shape of the pit,
it goes like this.
like narrow on top and wide in the bottom.
So on Shabbos, you could use these things.
But the pot is round.
Yeah, but you wouldn't set this stuff up before on Shabbos. You would set up before.
No, let's see. I'm not sure why they put. Let's see what's the connection. So, if you look at the top, it says Rabbi Yehuda Imer, if one can heat the oven by lighting a fire underneath it on the floor of the pit or cistern, and it will be heated effectively above, Tameh, it is Tameh. It says in 14, it is susceptible to tumah since the wedged oven can be heated effectively. Its current position is considered sufficiently attached to the ground to be susceptible to tumah, even though it was not cemented down. One can heat the oven by lighting a fire underneath it on the floor of the pit or cistern, and it will be heated effectively above. Tameh. V'im lav Torah. But if not, it is Torah. The sage says, since the oven was heated by any means, it is Tameh. What issue Rabbi Yehuda and the sages disagree? B'hai Korod is in regard to the interpretation of the following verse. Tanu v'chiraim yutatz, an oven or a stove that became tameh shall be demolished. Tmeim heim utmeim yu lochem, they are tameh and shall remain tameh to you. Rabbi Uda holds that since the pasuk employs the expression "shall be demolished," it implies that mechusa netitza tameh, an oven that is somewhat attached to the ground, so that it lacks demolishing, can be tameh. She'ein mechusa netitza toher, whereas on the one that is not attached to the ground at all, so that it does not lack demolishing, is always toher. Rabbanan Savrei, and the rabbis hold that the superfluous phrase at the end of the verse Tmeim yu lochem, they shall remain tameh to you, teaches mikol mokim. They are susceptible to tumah in all cases, whether they are attached to the ground or not attached to the ground. Concerning to the rabbis, it says yutat shall be demolished, shall be crushed, damaged, shattered. Why does it say? What are they going to do? Why they're not expounding on this word? Why? Rather, let's say why they're ignoring this word. But according to the rabbis too, the expression "shall be demolished" is written. And this implies that only an attached oven can become tameh. So the rabbis hold that that expression shall be interpreted the opposite way, the word yutats. Not as restricting the class of ovens that are susceptible to tumah to those that are attached to the ground, but as expanding it to include even those that are attached to the ground. For you might have thought it appropriate to say, Kevan the Chabur ve'aro, kegufa de'aro dami. Since the oven was attached to the ground, it is like the ground itself, and is not susceptible to tumah. Kamash malan, therefore the Torah informs us through the expression "shall be demolished" that even though as an oven is attached to the ground, it is susceptible to tumah. Vidachnami, and now according to the other Tana Rabbi Yehuda too, aksiv tmeim yu lochem, it is written and shall remain tameh to you, which would seem to include even ovens that were not attached to the ground as being susceptible to tumah. 125a3. Aikid Rabbi Yehuda amar Shmuel, damar Rabbi Yehuda amar Shmuel, machlekes be'esek rishon. The dispute between the rabbis and Rabbi Yehuda pertains to the very first heating of the oven. Aval behesek sheni, the subsequent heating. All agree, afilu toli b'tzvar gomor, even if the oven is detached from the ground and now suspended from the neck of a camel, it's hanging in the air. While a fire is lit underneath, it remains susceptible to tumah. The pasuk shall remain tameh tmeim yu lochem, for you comes to teach this law, it remains tameh. Amarula ve'esek rishon l'rabbanon, and the first heating renders an oven susceptible to tumah according to the rabbis, who do not require that it be attached to the ground. Afilu toli b'tzvar gomel, even if it is suspended from the neck of a camel for the heating. At any rate, Rabbi Yehuda holds that the new oven does not become classified as a utensil with regard to tumah susceptibility unless it is attached to the ground for the first heating, whereas the rabbis hold that it become classified as a utensil regardless of the circumstances of the first heating. Rava says that this very dispute finds expression with regard to the law of muktzah. In the Brisa cited above, the Brisa deals with the shards of an oven that was heated up for the first time while detached from the ground, and then broke. Rabbi Huda, who does not consider the oven a utensil while it is intact, holds that the shards too are not considered utensils and are therefore muktzah. Rabbi Meir, however, concurs with the rabbis who consider the oven a utensil. Therefore, he holds that when it breaks, its shards are not muktzah. Matkifla Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi objected to this. Yachi. If so, instead of arguing about the shards of the oven after it broke, Lipalgu bisanur gufo, they should have argued about the status of an oven itself while it is undamaged. For even the oven itself, according to Rabbi Yehuda, not considered a utensil. Shvov mibayad, is it necessary to state that its shards are not considered utensils and are muktzah? Rav Ashi therefore advances his own explanation of the Bais. Elam Rav Ashi said, Lo ilum kedamor mikor. Actually, it is as we stated above, that the dispute pertains to shards that are suitable to be used for some sort of task, but not for a semblance of the former task. Uvoise maise tapko, and specifically, it pertains to a case where the shards can be used for baking in the manner of tiles, by being heated from underneath to bake a dough that is resting on top of them. What they call today something like a stone, like a brick
oven.
Brick oven has those stones that they're heated up and they're part of the baking process.
Rabbi Meir.
Yeah, so Rabbi Meir Lidvorov, the Rabbi Yehuda Korma, Rabbi Meir focused on this case because he spoke according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. According to my opinion, shards may be moved even if they can be used to perform any sort of task. But even according to your opinion, that the shards must be suitable for a semblance of the former task, at least agree with me, concede to me, that in this case, where the shards of an oven can be used for baking in the manner of tiles, the current use is similar to the former task, and they may therefore be moved. But Rabbi Yehuda holds, lo idami. The current use is not similar to the former one. Or some mistaken bifnim, there while the oven was intact, it would be heated from the inside. Whereas here, once it has been shattered, the shards must be heated from the outside by a fire that is underneath them. Hosam umad, furthermore, there, while the oven was intact, dough would be baked in a standing position while attached vertically to the oven walls. Whereas here, once the oven has shattered, the dough is not baked in a standing position. It must be laying on top of the shards. So the function of the shards is not similar to the former task. Eid Rabbi Yossi mishum Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov al shivrei tanu Yosher shenitolim b'Shabbos. Rabbi Yossi testified in the name of Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov concerning the shards of an old oven, that they may be taken on the Shabbos. V'al kisuyo she'eino tzorech beis yad, and concerning its cover, it does not need a handle in order for one to be allowed to move it on the Shabbos. Amar Ravina, keman metaltelinan ha'idna kisuye de tanure the Mosa Mechasi, in accordance with whom do we nowadays move the oven covers of the town of Mechasia, the Eilaim Beis Achiza, which do not have handles. Keman, in accordance with whom? Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, it is in accordance with Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. It says in number 30, as a rule, the halacha follows the opinion of Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. Bottom line, they can be moved on Shabbos, may be taken on Shabbos. The new Mishnah discusses the law of a muktzah object that is attached to a non-muktzah object and functions as part of it. So muktzah object that is attached to a non-muktzah object. Avin shebekiruya, a stone that is in a gourd shell. Im emalin bo ve'eino nefeles. What is gourd shell?
Gourd.
What is gourd shell?
No, gourd. You know what a gourd is?
So it's a almost like a pumpkin.
Yeah, exactly.
So a stone that is in this pumpkin, in this gourd shell.
Right.
Im emalin bo ve'eino nefeles. If water can be drawn with the gourd shell, almost like a kli, without the stones falling out,
For it's securely attached.
there's a stone inside it.
Look at 31.
Yeah, it says dry gourd shells or dry pumpkin shells were used as buckets to draw water. Since the shell is light, it will not sink into the water unless a stone is placed in it to weigh it down.
You're using it as a bucket or something.
Yeah.
Exactly, that's what they say. So you take
The point is that if you were able to fill the water without the stone that is inside it falling out, the stone was there just to take it down.
If you scoop with the gourd, you can get the water.
People who do diving. To dive in the ocean,
you need to weight it down.
You need weights.
Right.
So over here they put a stone.
Right.
The point is that if you can fill it without the stone coming out, without the stone falling out, it's securely attached. Somehow they're able to secure the stone into to give it more weight.
You could stick it in there.
Memalin bo, we may draw water with it on the Shabbos. Vim lav ein memalin bo.
So it can't be loose.
If it's loose, you can't. Zemairo shikshur b'tafiach, a vine that is tied to a pitcher. Memalin bo b'Shabbos. You see the example of muktzeh attached to non-muktzeh.
Yeah, the vine is muktzeh and the pitcher is.
The pitcher is not muktzeh. Memalin bo b'Shabbos, or the stone and the
gourd, the same idea.
Okay. Pkaka chaloin. So man b'Shabbos. Pkaka chaloin, a window shutter. When it is attached to the ground, when it is attached to the building by a rope, and the rope is so short that the shutter is suspended when not in use, we may shutter the window with it on the Shabbos. But if the shutter is not suspended in this manner, we may not shutter the window with it. bein kach uvein kach boikikim boi. In either case, we may shutter the window with it. What type of a window shutter they're speaking about? So it says in number 3, it was a board. Anything else used to close a window. This applies even to the shutter of a skylight, where the placing of the shutter is more akin to making a oil. It's more likelihood that you'll make oil with it, a tent.
I'll have to think about it. Like this window, you have a pulley at the end there that opens the shade. So
Here you can make an oil with it.
okay, now if let's say you have a skylight. Okay, so a skylight.
Over here also, that's exactly what the Mishnah says. It's kosher v'tolu, it's suspended. When it is attached to the building by a rope, and the rope is so short that the shutter is suspended when not in use, we may shutter the window. But if it's not suspended, if the shutter is not suspended in this manner, we may not shutter the window with it. But the sages say, regardless, you're allowed to use it. Let's see what the Gemara said.
Okay.
Dan osam even shalpia chavis mato al tzido v'inofeles. Stone that is on the opening of a cask. It's muktzeh. The stone is muktzeh because it's not a utensil. But if you need to access the content of the barrel, so you tilt the barrel to the side, and the stone would fall by itself. One may tilt the cask on its side, so that the stone falls off. If it was among other casks which might break if the stone would fall against them, one may lift the cask as is, remove it to a safe location, and there tilt it on its side so that the stone falls off. Amar Rabba, Amar Rabbi Ami, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabba said in the name of Rabbi Ami, who said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Lo yishonu b'sheicheach. They taught this only concerning a case where one forgot the stone on top of the cask. Aval b'maniach, in a case where one left the stone intentionally before Shabbos, naso bosis ledover ha'osu, the cask has become a base to a forbidden object and may not be moved. To look at number 8, it says the rule that if the cask is among other casks, one may carry it to another location before tilting it, pertains only to a case where one left the stone on the cask unintentionally. But if he left the stone on the cask intentionally, if he left it there intentionally, in order to cover the cask and to leave it covered on the Shabbos, he may not lift the cask because it is a base to muktzah. Although he has designated the stone as a cover to the cask, its status is not elevated to that of a utensil, but remains muktzah. Nevertheless, he may tilt the cask in its place so that the stone falls off. Ordinarily, something that is a base to a muktzah item may not even be tilted to make the muktzah item falls off, because the base itself attains the muktzah status of the item that is resting on it. In our case, however, the cask does not serve the stone as a bona fide base. To the contrary, the stone serves it as a lid. Therefore, one is restricted only from lifting the cask while the stone is on it, and thereby lifting the stone itself, but not from tilting the cask. If, however, one would place the stone on the cask so that it should rest there before the Shabbos, the cask would be serving it as a base, and it would be forbidden even to tilt the cask. Rabbi Akiva Eiger. So what did Rabbi Akiva Eiger said? However, one would place the stone on the cask so that it should rest there before Shabbos. It should rest there for the Shabbos. The cask would be serving it as a base for something that's forbidden, for the stone. It would be forbidden even to tilt the cask. Rabbi Akiva Eiger. Then Gemara says, "Rav Yosef," in the bottom of it says, in the left column, it says, "Rav Yosef Omar Rabbi Asi Omar B'Yechanan Lo Yishonu B'Shecheach." They taught this only concerning a case where one forgot the stone on top of the cask. But in a case where one left it there intentionally, it has become classified as a cover to the cask and may be lifted outright.
So if you put it there unintentionally, then you can tilt it to drop it off. But if you put it as a cover, you can take it off.
Yeah, look at number 9. According to Rabbi Yosef, in the name of Rabbi Asi, Rabbi Yochanan qualified the Mishnah's rule in a lenient fashion. The Mishnah indeed refers exclusively to a case in which the stone was left on top of the cask inadvertently. However, the qualification is that if one left it there intentionally to serve as a lid, he is not required to tilt the cask so that the stone should fall off. Rather, he may lift the stone itself and replaces it as he will, at will, and replace it at will. So by using it as a lid, he has elevated its status to that of a utensil.
It's like using it for a cork on Shabbos. You open a bottle and you put a cork in it after you poured it out.
But it's different. The cork is made for this. Stone is not its main designation. But that's really I would say the essence of the machlokes is whether me using the stone as a lid turns it into a lid, turns it into a utensil, or the stone remains a stone. Okay. It's just that for now you found another use for it.
Okay.
But its muktzah remains. I did not change this classification. But the opinion that we just read now, of Yosef, is that it does change its classification. It becomes a lid. And if it's a lid, I don't have to tilt the cask. I don't have to move the cask to do things indirectly.
Take it off normally.
Yeah, because it's a utensil. It's like touching a plate.
Or the cork,
Shabbos.
like the
cork.
Okay.
Rabbah cited a possible challenge to his version of Rabbi Yochanan's opinion and then deflected. We can challenge our principle from the Mishnah, which states, a stone that is in a gourd shell. If we can draw water, that's the Mishnah, right? The gourd. If we can draw water with the gourd shell without the stones falling out, we may draw water with it. We see that when a stone is placed in a utensil, it itself becomes part of the utensil and not muktzah. Veloi, but actually this is not a contradiction to our view. Oh, some kivan dehadko shavir defen. In the Mishnah's case, since the person fastened the stone securely, he attached the stone securely to the shell, he has made it part of the shell's wall. In our case, however, where he merely placed the stone on the cask but did not fasten it, it is not considered part of the utensil. Rav Yosef similarly cite a possible challenge to his version of Rabbi Yochanan's opinion and deflects it. Amar Rav Yosef umusvin anashmatin, and we challenge our principle from the latter clause of our Mishnah, which states, Im lav ein memalin bo, but if not, if we cannot draw water with the shell without the stone falling out, we may not draw water with it. We see that a stone, which is merely placed in a vessel, but not fastened to it, does not become classified as a utensil. Veloi, but actually, this is not a contradiction to our view. Also, for there, in the Mishnah's case, since he did not fasten it securely to the shell, he nullified its possible classification as a utensil. In other words, he's saying this is not a utensil. I'm just using the stone right now, but the designation of the stone remains a stone, as it is unsuitable for being used in drawing water. In our case, however, merely placing the stone on top of the cask suffices to designate it as a lid. What issue do they disagree? One master, rabbi, in the name of Rabbi Ami, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, holds that a significant act of preparation is required to turn the stone into a utensil. Whereas the other master of Yosef, in the name of Rabbi Asi, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, holds that no significant act of preparation is required, but merely placing the stone on the cask suffices. And they, Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi, follow their own reasoning. For when Rav Dimi came from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, he said, in the name of Rabbi Chanina, and others say that Rabbi Zeira said in the name of Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi once went to a certain place before the Shabbos, and he found a row of stones that had been prepared for building. And he said to his students, he told his students, go out and have intent that those stones to be designated as seats. That's going to be our chairs, so that they may sit on them tomorrow. He didn't require them to perform any act of preparation, just to think that it's going to be used as a chair. Rabbi Yochanan said, Rabbi did require them to perform an act. According to Rabbi Yochanan, what did Rabbi tell them to do? Rabbi Ami said, he told them, go out and position the stones so that we will need to move them, so we will not need to move them on the Shabbos. Rearrange them now so we don't have to move the stones on Shabbos. We can just sit on them. Rabbi Asi Omar, according to Rabbi Asi, he actually asked them, Rabbi actually asked the student to polish them, to clean them,
right,
so that they will be allowed
to move them.
Right, so they will be allowed to move them on the Shabbos. So Rav Asi holds that a minor act, such as wiping a stone clean, is sufficient to give it the classification of a utensil, whereas Rabbi Ami holds that such a minor act is insufficient and it needs to actually move the stones. This is the same reasoning they follow in the case of a stone that was placed on top of a cask as a cover. Itma. Now we speak about incidents involving Rabbi or Rabbi. Yosef ben Shaul Omar. Yosef ben Shaul said, "Svar shakeres ava." It was a stack of beams that Rabbi sent his students to prepare for Shabbos use. Rabbi Yochanan ben Shaul said, "Goshu shosfinav." It was the sounding pole of a ship. This is the pole that is used to sound the water and determine whether it is deep enough for the ship to remain afloat. A shell emerged from the Gemara's clarification. Both of these Amoraim hold that Rabbi sent his students out to designate the item in question as a utensil, either through mere intent, as Rabbi Chanina stated, or through a minimal act, as Rabbi Asi stated. He did not send them out to position the item and preclude the need to move it. So Rabbi Yochanan Sholomar Goshesh Sfina, it was a sounding pole of a ship.
Okay. We have to go further to see what you're doing with this stick. I don't get it so far.
No, we're trying to see what exactly did he ask them to do. Rabbi Yosef ben Shaul said it was a stack of beams that Rabbi sent his students to prepare. This goes back to the previous story. The previous story was that he found a row of stones that he told them to prepare, right?
Yeah. Either
to have intent or to rearrange or to clean, different opinions. So comes the Gemara now tells you a different version of the story, that it was not even stones. It was stack of beams that Rabbi told his students to prepare so they can sit on them on Shabbos. Understand?
Yeah.
Just a different version of the story.
Okay.
Rabbi Yochanan ben Shaul, he said it was not Rabbi Yochanan ben Shaul, and he says no, it was not a stack of beams. It was actually a sounding pole of a sheep. Check the pole that checks the depth of the water. Make sure that the sheep doesn't get into too much of a shallow water. So, Mandoma Goshish Kolshik and Savas, the one who said that it was a sounding pole, Kolshik and Savas, certainly Rabbi would have allowed sitting on a stack of beams on the basis of his students' minimal preparation. Meaning he didn't have to do much. But the one who said that it was a stack of beams holds that the Rabbi's lenient ruling was limited to this case. But as for a sounding pole, the owner is particular about it, since it can easily be ruined by bending, and he sets it aside from use. Therefore, a minimal degree of preparation cannot render it non-muktzah.
Is that a specific use? You can't do that on Shabbos.
No, because it's not a utensil. Minimal preparation doesn't turn it into a utensil.
No, but this stick is.
Let me give a good example. If you take a log,
yeah,
it's just a log. But
right.
when you take it to your house and carve it and make a chair out of it, it's a chair. But it didn't turn a chair into nothing. It did work.
Right.
So there's a question of how much do I need to do to change something, to change its classification, to say, okay, it's a utensil now. It's not just a log. It's not just a piece of wood. It's not just a rock. It's something to sit on. It's a chair. It has functionality.
So like in camp, they use the logs to sit on, and they have they kumsas.
Right, but they're saying is improvisation is sufficient, or I need to actually do something to make it a utensil. You improvise. You take, okay, this, I'm going to use this for something else.
I mean, you got a log. You're in the woods. It's hot. You gotta sit down and have a drink. So you sit on the log.
But if you prepared it before Shabbos, you didn't prepare it before Shabbos. That's the thing. So there's opinion that you have to have intent. There's opinion that you have to actually clean it. There's opinion that you actually have to move it and arrange it next to your tent that you're going to sit on it. So it's not just.
Let's say I don't know. Okay, let's say there's a park, and I'm on this. I live over here. You live over there. I'm coming to visit you on Shabbos. It's a hot day. I walk into the park and there's this log and I'm hot. I'm tired. I sit on the log. I didn't prepare that log before Shabbos. Did I make an what did I do with the mooks? I did what I do.
Similarly, it looks like it's going to be a muktzah because it's not a utensil.
So I shouldn't have started on the log.
I'm not sure if it's a halacha, but at least from what we see in the Gemara, you need to have some kind of intent before Shabbos to use it for that purpose.
Okay, let's see.
If you just stumble upon something on Shabbos, if you can use it as that or not, it's a question on its own.
I mean, I could see, like, if I'm walking from my house to here on Shabbos, and I go, and there's a bus stop, I sit on the chair.
That's obvious that it's okay because that's what it was made for.
Yeah.
But if you see a rock and sit on it, it might not be okay.
Okay, let's see where to go.
A chair might not be okay. A car, sitting on a car.
That could be a
leaning on a car.
Well, you could lean on the car. No.
Was it designated for?
Leaning? No.
It's muktzah, no?
It's muktzah, yes.
So, let's see. The Murashik, maybe we'll get to it in the Shulchan Aruch.
Yeah.
One day. It was Shabbos.
Yeah.
But from here we see that it's not so simple.
Okay, that I get.
Otherwise, why did Rabbi tell them go prepare the
to clean off the
rocks or the wood? Well, what to prepare? You go out there, you sit.
Right.
Zemur shikshu, a vine that is tied.
Dude, that was the idea about the picture.
Not only that, we just said that a minimal preparation does not make it non-muktzah.
Right.
By the end of saying, therefore, a minimal degree of preparation cannot render it non-muktzah.
Okay.
Look at 23. A sounding pole is muktzah machmas chisrin kis. Muktzah due to fear of monetary loss. Right. The owner consciously sets such an object aside from use and puts it in designated place for the duration of Shabbos. Even the Tana, Rabbi Shimon, who is lenient concerning other categories of muktzah, recognizes this category. A significant act of preparation is required to make it permitted for Shabbos use. A minimal act suffices to prepare for use something that would have been muktzah due to a mere lack of preparation. For example, stones or beams that lack designation as utensils. However, when something was actively set aside from use, a significant act is required to undo its designation. So over here it seems like a minimal act suffices for stones and beams, but for other things that had a different type of use, and suddenly you want to change them, you have to do something significant to turn it from a muktzah item to a utensil item that you might be able to use on Shabbos. But muktzah machmas chisron kis is something that has happened a lot. That a lot of things people put aside because they're worried that they're going to get ruined.
Right. say pull your stuff away before Shabbos if you're.
So these things cannot be moved.
Right, I got that.
If you didn't, let's say you have, I don't know, in your job, you have special tools for your job, right?
Right.
Right. So you have special tools, and if you forgot to put them away, it's going to be a problem to move them on Shabbos. That would be muktzah machmas chisron kis. You're moving it because you don't want it to get ruined. That's the next case of the Mishnah now, is the Shikshur. A vine that is tied to a pitcher, we may draw water with it on the Shabbos. Shua in the Mishnah implies that if the vine is tied to the pitcher, we may indeed draw water with it. Like Shua. But if it is not tied to the pitcher, we may not suspend the pitcher from it and draw water. Leima masnisin de loik Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. So we say that our Mishnah does not accord with Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, the Tanya. It was taught in a bison. If one had hardened branches of a date palm that one harvested from firewood, which are muktzah. And he then changed his mind regarding them and decided to use them for sitting. So you did all this work, hardened the branches for firewood. That was your intention. Suddenly now you decided you want to sit on them.
Right.
You want to use them for sitting. So he must tie them into bundles before the Shabbos in order to render them non-muktzah. So he has to bundle them before Shabbos to prepare them for sitting. He doesn't need to tie them. It is sufficient if he merely intends before the Shabbos to sit on them. Shall we say that our Mishnah does not accord with this view? You can even say that the Mishnah accords with Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. What are we dealing with here? In our Mishnah, it is for the case where the vine is still attached to its parents, to its parent, meaning to the body of the grapevine. Even Rabbi Shimon Gamliel agrees that in this instance, it must be tied to the pitcher before it can be permitted for use. Since an attached vine does not stand to be used for any purpose, its status cannot be elevated to that of a utensil through mere intent to use it, but only through a genuine act of preparation, such as tying it to the pitcher.
And this means before Shabbos. I can understand doing that, but before Shabbos, and say, okay, there's the water, there's the thing, and I want to dip it in and get it and pull it out. That I could see doing that. Okay.
So even Rabbi Shimon Gamliel agrees that in this instance it must be tied to the pitcher before it can be permitted for use. The Gemara says, but 1 second. If so, one who draws water will be making use of something that is attached to the ground, which is prohibited. Lamata mishloisho, we are dealing with a short vine that is within 3 tfachim of the ground. It is permitted to make use of an attached item that is within 3 tfachim of the ground.
That's a little different.
Ravashi Amar afilu betlusha. You can even say that the Mishnah is dealing with a detached vine. Nevertheless, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel concedes that it must be tied to the picture before the Shabbos, on account of a decree that was enacted out of concern that perhaps one will find the vine too long for his purpose, and he will cut it down. He will cut it down to size. A window shutter. Rabbi Lezer says when it is attached to the building by a rope, and the rope is so short that the shutter is suspended, we may shutter the window with it on the Shabbos. But if the shutter is not suspended in this manner, we may not shutter the window with it. But the sages say, in either case, we may shutter the window with it. Amar Rabba bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Hakol Meidim she'nesin oilare b'tchila b'yom tov. Rabbi Lezer and the sages agree that we may not erect even a temporary structure initially in Yom Tov. You're not allowed to make a temporary structure. Oil is a temporary structure initially on Yom Tov, and it need not be said that this is forbidden on the Shabbos. Yeah, it's obvious. If they disagree only whether one is permitted to make a temporary addition to an existing structure. In such a case, Rabbi Lezer says, we may not make even a temporary addition to a building on Yom Tov. And it need not be said that it is forbidden on the Shabbos. While the sages say we may make a temporary addition to a building even on the Shabbos. And it need not be said that we may do so on Yom Tov. The sages say in either case we may shutter the window with it. What is the meaning in either case? Does it mean that we may shutter the window whether the shutter is suspended in the air or not, but it must be attached to the building? Or perhaps it means that we may shutter with it whether it is attached to the building or not. Rabbi Abba said the name of Kahana. Ben koshu, ben she'eno koshu. The sages mean that we may use the shutter whether it is attached to the building or it is not attached. Provided that it was prepared for use as a shutter before the Shabbos. Buchim to you.
So it's